Hello and good morning, everybody. My name is Michael, and thank you for joining me once again as we continue in reading God's Word. Yesterday, because my phone was dead for the most part, we kind of deviated from our normal routine and enjoyed one of the Psalms of David, Psalm 25. Fortunately, thank the Father that my phone actually stayed connected this time, so I got full battery. So we'll continue reading into the book of Exodus in chapter 16, just as a kind of update and background of where we have come from. Moses had just got done, through God's will and assistance, leading the people out of Israel, coming up into the Red Sea, having the Red Sea parted within from itself, given the Israelites the ability to escape the Egyptians. And we're talking like hundreds of thousands of people. Like, if you could imagine for a second, like, just like the awe of it all, of having the sea like completely. Movies don't do it justice, I don't think, to what that actual sight would be. And having hundreds of thousands of people crossing through the bottom of the ocean on dry land with two giant walls of water right next to you. And as the Israelites continue to pass through, the Egyptians and Pharaoh followed after them. And once the last Israelite was passed through, God closed the walls of water back down, and it smashed down all of the Egyptians that were chasing after them so that they'd never see their face again, just as the Lord had promised. The thing you got to understand is his Father keeps his promises. He's not a promise breaker. He's a promise keeper. Now we see Israel starting to move through the wilderness, heading into their promised land, being led by God by a pillar of fire at night and through a giant cloud during the day, keep them from the heat during the night and light during the day. I mean, vice versa, what I just said. Then they stopped at Elim, where they stayed for a little bit. And so where we continue off is in chapter 16, where they start to set off from Elim. And we'll see here that the beginning of the complaints start to happen in Israel, soon forgetting, as we people tend to do, we forget about the struggles when we've been going through something hard and we've been led through it, and then a little bit of time goes by and we forget how it felt to be going through that, and we become ungrateful again. So always stay grateful, always stay in remembrance of those hardships, for they shape us into who we are at this point in time. We don't go through hardships for no reason at all. It's to refine and polish and bring us out at a better point than what we came in at. So we'll be continuing in from chapter 16 this morning to in chapter 16, 17, and 18. We're getting ready as we be led through here. They're on their way to Mount Sinai, unknowingly. They don't know this yet, but they are on their way to Mount Sinai, where Moses is going to be given the 10 Commandments, and the Israelites decide to go their own way. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, which I tend to do all the time. So we'll go ahead and we'll just start getting into God's Word. So again, this is the book of Exodus, starting in chapter 16. And here it's labeled Bread from Heaven. And they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the people of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month, after they had departed from the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the people of Israel said to them, Would that we had Would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the meat posts and ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness, to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then the Lord said to Moses, Behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily. So Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, At evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumblings against the Lord. For what are we that you grumble against? And Moses said, When the Lord gives you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to full, because the Lord has heard your grumbling, that you grumble against him, what are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, Say to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, Come near before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of people of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them, At twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God. In the evening quail came up and covered the camp. And the morning dew lay by the camp, and when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, What is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it, each one of you, as much as you can eat. You shall each take an omer, according to the number of the persons that each of you had in his tent. And the people of Israel did so. They gathered some more or less, or some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, Let no one leave any of it over till the morning. But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat, but when the sun grew hot, it melted. On the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he had said to them, This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake, and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over lay aside to be kept until the morning. So they laid it aside till the morning, as Moses commanded them, and it did not stink, and there were no worms in it. Moses said, Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is a Sabbath, there will be none. On the 7th day some of the people went out together, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain each of you in his place. Let no one go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. Now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like a coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread that which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt. And Moses said to Aaron, Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. The people of Israel ate the manna 40 years, till they came to a habitable land. They ate the manna till they came to the border of the land of Canaan. An omer is the 10th part of an ephah, or an ephah. I don't know necessarily how to pronounce that word. So it's just in reading in here, you see that people immediately start to revert and go back to do their own things, not trusting in the Lord. They gathered more than what they needed. They kept more than what they needed. They were full, like full to where you can't eat anymore. And instead of trusting in the Father and letting it go, they kept it, and so it stunk. And then also giving it to the point on the sixth day where they were supposed to gather more, double the amount that they had. On the seventh day, they still went out, but they couldn't find any because they're not trusting in God. This is something that we should take into our own thoughts, that He provides what we need, not what we want, what we need. Chapter 17, Water from the Rock. All the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of sins by stages, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped by Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water. And the people grumbled against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" Excuse me. Batman goat. My sons. So Moses cried to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." And the Lord said to Moses, "Pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile. And go, behold, I will stand before you there on a rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people will drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the quarreling of the people of Israel, and because they tested the Lord by saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" Then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, "Choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, and whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary. So they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this as a memorial in the book and recite it in the ears of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." And Moses built an altar and called the name of it, "The Lord is my banner," saying, "A hand upon the throne of the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation." And chapter 18, Jethro's advice. Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. He's just on my mind all the time, so it slips out sometimes. Now Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, had taken Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her home, along with her 2 sons. The name of one was Gershom, for he had said, "I have been a sojourner in a foreign land." And the name of the other, Eliezer, for he said, "The God of my father was my help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh." Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Moses in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of God. And when he sent word to Moses, "I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and your 2 sons with her," Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. And they asked each other of their welfare and went into the tent. Then Moses told his father-in-law all the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardship that had come upon them in the way, and how the Lord had delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the good and that the Lord had done to Israel, in that he had delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. Jethro said, "Blessed be the Lord, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, and has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, because in this affair they dealt arrogantly with people." And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. The next day Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood around Moses from morning till evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, "What is it that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone, and all the people stand around you from morning till evening?" And Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make them know the statutes of God and his laws." Moses' father-in-law said to him, "What are you doing? What you are doing is not good. You and the people with you will certainly wear yourselves out, for the thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone. Now obey my voice. I will give you advice, and God be with you. You shall represent the people from before God and bring their cases to God, and you shall warn them about the statutes and the laws, and make them know the way in which they must walk and what they must do. Moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the people as chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. And let them judge the people at all times. Every great matter they shall bring to you, but any small matter they shall decide between themselves, so it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this, God will direct you. You will be able to endure, and all this people will also go to their place in peace. So Moses listened to the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he had said. Moses chose able men out of all Israel and made them heads over the people, chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. And they judged the people at all times. Any hard case they brought to Moses, but any small matter they decided themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went away to his own country. Now, just a little recap here, when they're speaking of judging people at all times and being judges, it's basically like them governing over the people, being, a peacemaker in between two people who have an issue with one another. They're giving judgment based off of the situation at hand. Not that they're sitting there, as we might think of the Sadducees and the Pharisees, constantly just judging you by your actions in a condemning way, but judging you by what you're bringing to yourself, by what they're bringing to them, just so that there's clarity on the judgment there. But yeah, there is the reading for this morning. I hope you enjoy. Chapter 19 is Israel showing up on Mount Sinai. Moses going up to Mount Sinai and staying there, and God handing down the 10 Commandments, that the law given to the people of Israel. And yeah, just the people of Israel go their own way, and it gets worse for them, and because of their disobedience, they're not given the promised land for a while. They're forced to go into the wilderness and wander around in circles because of their disobedience to God and their inability to keep their faith in God. So let it be a reminder to us all that we should always be glancing towards the Father and keeping our eye on the Father and having trust in Him, knowing that He's going to persevere and make our way straight and clear for us as long as we remain obedient. Some of that may be harder for some others. Some others it's easier to do. But humble yourself down, because He's got the way. It's always to bring you out better. It's always to make you more. It doesn't put you through anything that you can't handle, even though you may think you can't handle it at that time. He covers you and brings you through it. So yeah, with that being said, I do love you all. I hope you have a wonderful week. God bless you. We will continue on this more tomorrow. And you have a wonderful week, wonderful day. Get closer to God, get closer to Jesus, understanding what he did for us, having all of this that we're going to be reading until the New Testament. For the Old Testament is what the New Testament's about. They go hand in hand. But without having the Old Testament, we can't necessarily understand the New Testament very well either, because all the promises and everything that came from, or that are spoken about in the New Testament, come from the Old Testament. So that's why we're doing it this way, so that we can have an understanding of going, oh, as we read through here, oh, that's okay, the laws of Moses. Okay, people started to do their own things, and we'll continue to get there. It's still pretty early, but I do thank you. I love you. Have a wonderful day.